Thank you, Nancy. Thank you guys for coming. I'm Tracy Tomlinson. I'll be talking about Numbers Don't Lie, but People Do, which is the OER Introductory Stats book that myself and, oh, there we go, my slide's working, the rest of the team helped create. So Dr. Manoj Cole and Dr. Benjamin Jones helped create this textbook with me. We are all lecturers in the psychology department at the University of Maryland, College Park. I'm a senior lecturer, and Dr. Coley and Dr. Jones are probably very soon to become senior lecturers. And this was really our first OER that we kind of created, and it was a big learning experience. It was a whole lot more work than we think initially thought, but we're very proud of and happy with what we've created. So what I'm going to talk about today is basically our goals. What's the goals that we have? What are the goals that we had? How did this OER help be the solution for those goals, but also particularly the Goliath of OER statistics, in my opinion, which is the homework sets. But we're also going to talk about how this engaged student learning, give you some student feedback and future directions. If you have any questions as we go through, I'm happy to hear your voice at any point. We're going to try and at least have 5 minutes at the end for questions. And there's also the chat for those of you who don't want to speak up in a virtual setting. I'll try and monitor it as well. So our goals. We wanted to instruct and model open science practices. So I teach predominantly statistics and research methodology courses. And in all of those classes, and even ones that aren't explicitly research oriented, I try to instruct and model open science. I really want to create ethical researchers who can critically think about information. And open science, I think, helps model that beautifully. So we also want to increase equity. I mean, we've heard a great talk about that already, but we also want students to learn about it through experience, learning these open science practices. We wanted it to be a holistic experience for our students where I'm teaching about open science methods, but I'm also using them and the course is using them as well. And it felt like such a contradiction and fairly hypocritical for me to talk about open science and open resources, but then require my students to pay for a textbook. It was also the case that I wanted to save my students money, but I wanted to do this without increasing the teaching load if at all possible, because I know we're all already hugely overworked. So I wanted to see if I could have this experience for students, reduce their cost, maintain or increase their learning, but not at the cost of increasing my working load. So those were our goals. The solution we came up with was, well, we just need to create our own book. So in collaboration with Dr. Jones and Chicoli, we created Numbers Don't Lie, but People Do. It began with the generous support of a grant from UMD, TLTC Teaching and Integration Grant. And we also, thank you, we were the recipients of the Most Create grant. So this book focuses on introducing statistical concepts in easy to understand text. A lot of our students in the psych department don't want to come in and do statistics. They actually have a lot of math anxiety, a lot of fear. The word statistics makes them not happy. So I love taking on that challenge and showing them how wonderful statistics can be. But part of what would be helpful for that is if we had textbooks that were very easy for them to understand and comprehend. But it also we focus a lot on the concepts as well as the computations. But what makes statistics more interesting, especially for our social science students is when they see what those numbers mean. And they're not just numbers, they're representing something. So providing more interesting and inclusive examples when we have control over the text, especially in statistics. It was virtually impossible for us at the time to find an example of a dichotomous outcome that wasn't just male, female. Like that was it. It's like male, female, male, female, male, female. That's it. So we could change that and make our own dichotomy. And it also, again, modeled and showed open science practices. As it's an OER, it's continually being updated and revised. It's never ends, but that means it's always most current, hopefully. All right, so this book was our solution for our goals, and it clearly instructed and modeled open science practices and increased equity and experiential learning of open science practices. Because we created and showed students this open educational resource, we also invited students to participate in it. I'll talk about a couple more slides. Students can, as I mentioned in the larger session, they can create artwork for our book. They can actually review the book. They're invited to participate in the book, and they get to see how we're dynamic with the book. The book changes as the field changes. We get to change what we do with it. And everyone has access to it at all time. No one has to pay for it. If they go to another class in an upper division, they want to review it later, the book will still be there. And not only will the book still be there, it'll be the most current version of the book. They don't have to worry about older editions. And the experiential learning, again, they're part of it. They get to see it. So it really helped in those areas. It certainly saves student money. When we computed it, we are saving our students in aggregate, over $60,000 a year by no longer require them to purchase a statistics textbook. Reducing teaching strain. So the way we tried to accomplish this is we created homework sets to go with it, where the homework sets are automatically graded by Canvas, but it also enables teachers to edit and customize, and they can create questions where they grade them as well. And maintain or increase student learning seems to have been accomplished, especially what we do is we allow, because we've created these homework sets that I'm about to talk about, we allow multiple attempts on homework. So students get multiple tries to learn the material, but after each attempt, they also get feedback. And because it's automatically graded by Canvas, they get that feedback immediately rather than when I have the time to get to it. And students have generally given us very positive feedback, and I have some data I'll share on that in a little bit. So it really seemed to accomplish our goals to do this. The sticking point for us, first of all, making OER is certainly a lot of work, but what was really difficult was these homework sets. I think one of the primary reasons we had not transitioned to an OER, a statistics OER before this, was because I didn't find any OER statistics except for one, the passion-driven statistics, which are fantastic, that come with homework sets. And so you have to create your own if you don't do that. So that's just so much work, and we're already there's just too much. We're all overworked. Creating homework sets is not something that we have a lot of time with, especially when you want to create them well. So that was the sticking point for us, which is why we created our own homework sets. Because we wanted to enable other people to more readily adopt OERs, and we wanted our students to be able to see that. So we didn't, if that was the sticking point for us, we imagined that was a problem for many other instructors. So we created over 1,200 homework questions in Canvas, because this is the system that our university uses. It is shared on the Canvas Commons for anyone with Canvas access, so it's not fully OER yet, but we're hopefully getting there. We've also shared it in a public Google Drive with a Canvas cartridge, so people can access it that way as well. These questions, so this is the Canvas, basically this is a Canvas site that we created. It hosts the link for the textbook as well as the homework sets. We've created a homework set for every chapter of our book, and they range, some of them are smaller chapters with I think 8 questions, and some of them have 112 questions for each chapter. It just depends on what it is. But these questions helped hopefully to engage our student learning because of how we've created them as well. We have 2 primary types of questions we use. They're formula-based questions and multiple choice-based questions. The formula-based questions are ones that are computational in nature. The multiple choice ones are usually more conceptual in nature. So we wanted to have a mix of both computation and concept. For each topic within a chapter, we've created a question bank. So for example, if you were looking at the correlation chapter for Pearson's R, we might have one question bank that's just on visualizing correlations, and it shows scatter plots for students to interpret. We might have another question bank that's on computing z-scores, because that's how you compute the definitional form of Pearson's R. There might be another question bank that asks you just to compute the numerator of Pearson's R, and another one that asks you just to compute the denominator. So it's a building block process. And part of that is because we don't want students to be able to just use a calculator for all the computation questions. And by asking it to build, calculators will usually give you Pearson's R, but they don't usually give you the numerator for Pearson's R. But also it enables students to see the steps of computing. You do this, and then you do this, and you do this. And because I'm not grading it, they don't get the feedback from me, they can see where they got it wrong for each step. If I just ask them to compute Pearson's R and they get that wrong, they don't know where they went wrong. But if I'm asking them to compute the numerator and then the denominator and then a full set, they can see where their errors were, hopefully a bit more readily. So they always get correct they always are shown the correct answer once they submit their homework, but also we provided general feedback for every question type as well to hopefully help them engage that learning. And that's why we provide 2 attempts. And because it's with question banks, you can randomly select from the question bank, and the chances that a student gets the exact same question are very low. And we try and engage them by asking them to participate in book and doing art. So to show that briefly, this is a formula question that we created in Canvas. This is asking students to compute the standard error of the mean. And the nice thing about formula questions is they're dynamic for each student. So every student can get that exact same question, but with different numbers. So everyone has a different it's the same computational process, but they have different numbers to compute. So they are individually, hopefully doing it a bit more. So you can see here, so each variable that I've input here for each student, here's some possibilities. There's usually 300 possible solutions at a minimum. So there are 300 possible solutions that could be given here, which means if in our class, we don't have 300 students, we have 250. So the chances that anyone gets a repeat one is pretty low. But for example, the mean could range from 60 to 80, a standard deviation from 7 to 17. So we specify those ranges. But instructors, when you go to if you want to download this Canvas set, you can modify those ranges all you want. You can modify the text all you want. You can change that. You can make 500 homework possible solutions if you'd rather. You can also specify the margin of error for a lot of these, which is great. So this is one of the reasons, this is how we can have students do repeat examples for actually quite a bit. And they get to try it's a slightly different question each time because it's different values. Multiple choice questions tend to be more concept-based, and those are ones, though, that if students repeat them, they might get the exact same question again. So what we've done with those is we've tried to make a decent set of them within each question bank, so the probability that they'll get randomly selected the same question if they do repeat one is hopefully lower. But we think concept is important, so we have those in there. For each question, once they submit the question, they get feedback of the answer. So in this question, it's asking them to compute a binomial probability for 15 or more successes out of 17 trials. The correct answer would be 0.0012. We allowed a margin of error that's fairly low, but that's our margin of error. You can change it. And then we provide a general answer comment. So they get the specific answer, but then they get the general answer for each question, where this question was asking you to compute the binomial probability. The binomial probability equation is this, n factorial over s factorial times n minus s factorial, and so forth, where the p. And so for each of these, we get this general feedback. So if they're not sure why they got it wrong, they at least have a starting point to try and assess the equation that they should have used and how it was used. And this is for every question in the bank. All right, so hopefully you can see why we hope and we structured this in a way that we think it's going to engage student learning. And it allows, especially because of these multiple attempts and these different types of questions and the feedback they get. We also try and engage students by asking them to submit student art for our book. They come up with some great things. I love the I need more power one, pulling the alternative distribution over. This student created an amazing flowchart for factorial analyses for discrete dependent variables to try and, personally, I love flowcharts. This other student created an infographic of the steps for linear hypothesis significance testing. They come up with some really great stuff. And when you ask students what they think about it, they tend to like it. So we poll students about this. You can see it's neutral or negative, not so much on the, neutral or positive, not so much on the negative. Did they find the textbook helpful? Generally, yes. I found the textbook easy to read. Generally, yes. I found the textbook easy to navigate. Also, yes. The textbook used inclusive examples, which is one of our goals, is the one where they're more neutral, but also positive. So we would like to address that a bit more. Part of that might be that it just, hopefully, when we talk to students, they said they didn't notice anything that was like a disturbing example, but they weren't overtly like thinking this is very inclusive or diverse when they saw it. So it's not, when we talked to them, it's not that they thought it wasn't inclusive, but it just didn't it didn't register for them one way or another. So if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please let me know. Here's our future directions. We want to make more of these. We've made them on Canvas. We've shared them publicly, but it's still set on Canvas. So our next step is working to making them actually an OER homework set to go with the OER textbook. We want to add more conceptual questions because those are always more of a struggle, and we think we need more of those. We want to add a few more chapters. We're working on our Bayesian information chapter right now. After that, we're going to do two-way ANOVA. Lots of fun. And here's a QR code if you want. This will lead you to the book QR code, as well as the Canvas homework set cartridge and the slides for this show. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Questions, concerns, comments. I'm also happy to navigate. I have everything pulled up on the internet if you want to go look at it in lifetime.
Thank you, Tracy. Questions, comments?
Christy, I think you're muted. I'm sorry. I can't hear you.
Thank you. I could start off with a question.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as a team, how you go back and edit, especially the textbook. I'm working on a team, and we have questions about how we edit together as we're using the materials.
So when we first started, we basically divided up. We said we agreed on the outline that we wanted, and then we divided up the sections. And since there were three of us, really two of us were content creators, and one of them was an overall editor. So we divided it that way. So Ben and I actually split up the content because we're the primary instructors for our stats course. And then Amanda went through and tried to look across all of it. And then Ben and I swapped to look at each other's sections afterwards. So that worked well for us. And what we've been doing as we progress is we've been utilizing graduate TA support. So we all meet at least once a semester, Ben, Amanda, and I, and we talk about what we would like to do and change. And we have graduate TAs who help in the stats course. And because we've automated so much of the homework, we actually have more ability for them to help us with content creation and editing. And so, for example, last semester, we were working on some of the accessibility issues with a book, and one of the graduate TAs was going through with some of that. I had an undergraduate TA who was actually looking through the book for examples of inclusivity. This was, it relates sort of to our earlier discussion. They identified as non-binary, so their perspective to look for inclusive examples was valued. So we had them go through and look through the book for some of that. That's what worked for us, but did that address your question? Did that help?
Yeah, thank you. I love the idea that you had two content people and then one person that was sort of looking overall for the standardization, and that sounds really helpful.
It was, although it certainly required a few meetings beforehand where Ben and I talked about how we wanted to go through it so that poor Amanda wasn't doing so much work later. Because even with that meeting, we still had differences.
Thanks.
The Google link for the book, if that's you're interested, or here's the Google Drive link, which will have all of that in there.
Perfect. Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. This is the Canvas site for the textbook and homework sets. We have instructions and tips in getting started with people. Some of them, if you're not familiar with Canvas, we have some videos to walk you through how to modify some of it on your own. Because the question banks are there, you literally get to create it however you want it. You can make your own, you don't have to use the ones we created. You can make your own quizzes and just use our question banks. You can combine chapters, you can create new questions. We'd love to have some of those if you want to share them as well. That would be great. But you can really create exactly what you want using this as a base, essentially. So here are homework questions.
Questions too around how open we can make homework problems. You know, if you're going to grade them, you don't want them just out on the internet where students could find them necessarily, but getting them out of the particular sort of parameters of the LMS is helpful, I think, for folks who obviously have Blackboard or another LMS.
Which is why we focused a lot on creating those formula ones, because in that case, I really don't care if they're online, because you still have to do the same process with your own unique numbers. So you still have to get the right answer, you still have to do it. But it's also, though, why I think we need a lot more of the content ones, those multiple choice ones, because if you have a large diversity of them, it's just hard, you know, there's more of them to go through at least. But yeah, but yes, hopefully we'll get it not just in Canvas. That's our next step.
We're going to be going back at noon, I believe, for our next set of sessions. But Tracy, if you want to follow up with me about if there's any support we could try to provide you and that moving things out of Canvas piece, you may have some supports identified at College Park, but we can chat about that as well.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you. I love that. All right. Thank you.